Imagine being born in a Harry Potter world where magic is everywhere. Even small children can perform magic on a daily basis, and it is an inseparable part of their lives. To give you a hint, this anime is a cocktail of Harry Potter and Saitama. In this world, there is one guy who was born without magic, which is quite ironic, because in a world where magic is everything, Mash was born without magic. So he regularly trained his body from childhood and became Saitama in the magical world. Mash has spent his entire life in the woods, away from others, with his father Rigro, but when he returned home, he forgot whether he should pull or push the door open, and in his confusion, he damaged it. While his father screamed in agony and became angry with him, Mash attempted to repair the door but damaged it even more. The damage was done and nothing could be done, so Rigro was on his way to the city, but before he did so, he clears it out with Mash that he would stay at home and never set foot in the city. But that's the first thing he did after Rigro left. He went into town to buy cream puffs, but when the wind blew, it blew up Mash's hoodie, revealing his face to others. In this world everyone has a mark on their face, which means they can use magic. And Mash doesn't have one, so the public rolled the call to the Magic Bureau. Aside from that, Mash came across a drunk officer who wanted an apology from Mash for dirtying his uniform. So Mash simply took his clothes to wash them in his style before returning them to him as an apology. He was throwing a tantrum, but then Bard from Magic Bureau comes in to take Mash away, but suddenly Rigro takes him away in an instant. He was very angry at him, but seeing his gloomy face, he thought Mash was reflecting on his action, so Rigro ordered him to repeat his morning training again. Mash finishes his training in such a way that even the animals around him are shocked, but when he returns, he hears some noises from inside, and it was Bard who pursued them, hoping to apprehend Mash, and Rigro was courageous and didn't say anything about Mash. For his entire childhood, Rigro was a failure at magic, and everyone around him looked down on him, whether it was his own mother or their teacher. For the rest of his life, Rigro was frustrated for being a failure, and he was about to take a wrong step. Rigro heard a baby cry, so he backed off for a moment and saw a baby, and he didn't have a magic mark on him, so his parents abandoned him. Anyone without a magic mark is executed by the Magic Bureau because magic is seen as a god's blessing, and anyone without one gets killed. So, for the first time, there was someone in need of Rigro, so he decided to raise this child himself. Even though death was close by, Rigro yelled out loud for Mash, telling him to get out of here. Now that was the breaking point for Mash, as he sent one of the Bard's men flying away, and took that fatty out again. Bard couldn't take it and was about to use his powerful spell against Mash, with which he could even fight a dragon, but Mash slapped it away as if it were nothing in front of him. Bard tries again and again, but nothing seems to work against Mash, as Mash began to play with his magic, making him look foolish. Mash then borrows Rigro's wand, and Brad believes he is about to use magic, but he throws the wand so fast that it pierces through his defensive barrier. Rigro was taken aback because he had only intended to train him for self-defense, but Mash had instead overpowered human limits, after losing his confidence. Then Bard offers a nice deal to Mash to join the Magic Academy, where every year a chosen one by God receives the honor of becoming a divine visionary. If Mash succeeds in becoming one, the society will not be hostile to him. Rigro didn't want this to happen, but if Mash denies, then Bard and the entire Magic Bureau will come after him, so he can kiss his peaceful days goodbye with his dad. Bard wants nothing more than the fortune that Mash can bring after being a divine visionary, so, for the sake of his father, Mash agreed to enroll in the Magical Academy, which resembled Hogwarts in many ways. And then there's the entrance exam, which only 3% of kids pass every year, and this year's exam will be conducted by Teach Claude. One glance from afar and Claude thought Mash was a slacker for playing with iron in a magic exam, not only that Mash sits in the air and read a muscle book instead of a spell or a grimoire. To raise even more suspicions, Brad and Rigro were also keeping an eye on him. Claude was confident that Mash would fail anyway. And then he appears in front of the freshers to conduct their exam, while Claude has his own accomplishment, and is also a fairly well-known figure in magic. He made stone benches for them to conduct a written exam, and Mash gets on Claude's nerves by saying aloud that he could have taken them to class instead. Claude maintains his cool because he casts a spell on the question paper, and until they can't lift up his spell, the question will play a snake game in the paper. Everyone was struggling, and Bard and Rigro gave up right away because Mash couldn't use any sort of magic, but then Mash quietly asked the questions to stop moving, and they obeyed. Shocking both of the old men and Claude, from then on, Mash aced every test and ate his favorite cream puffs. Claude wanted to stop him, so he built a large maze around as a next test with a lot of traps. Irvine Lemon, aka the clumsy one, wanted to team up with Mash because having an extra person could be helpful, so he agreed. Then, as they began to find a way out, well, as I said, a clumsy one, who got surrounded by imps but couldn't do anything, she fell into trap yet again, and Mash heard a scream. He wanted to run towards that scream, but Irvine bound him with handcuffs. She had been acting all nice and clumsy to keep him from passing through this maze. But she had no idea it was all futile as Mash broke the cuffs and ran off. She was in a daze to witness something impossible. But just as she was about to chase him down, a four-legged mummy appears as a test for Irvine. That strange thing simply spoke a riddle for Irvine to solve, but the riddle is an impossible task for a clumsy person, so Irvine failed the test. The mummy was about to harm him. And Mash intercepted it and knocked her out with a single punch. Irvine couldn't believe it. Even though she tried to frame Mash, he still came to her aid. But everyone has a reason to do what they do. And if she did, it means she has her own reason to do so. But time was running out, and Claude was relieved to see Mash fail, but he smashed every wall to get to the finish line, and for that he was criticized by others. Irvine couldn't take it in and spoke up. Claude tries to silence her, but she tells everyone that Mash wanted to pass this test by solving the maze honestly, but she got on his way to delay him so he wouldn't pass. And she did all of this because Claude promised her a passing score. Even though she duped Mash, he still saved her and, according to her, Mash even proposed, despite the fact that it wasn't even close to the truth about him proposing. Even when Claude was exposed, he didn't show any remorse. He had a moral high ground because he comes from a noble family and is an examiner, so he thinks he could decide who he should pass. Dude got all serious and threatening, but Mash just smashed his pride. This got messy, so the headmaster, Mr. Dumbledore, showed up knowing exactly what Claude did, so he took over as examiner from then on. Dumbledore simply chose Mash to test first. He asked about his motivation for joining the academy, and Mash said it was to be closer to his family. No one in the room took his answer seriously, so Dumbledore asked him why he didn't prioritize his test and save Irvine. Even though Mash is a knucklehead, he understands the value of life, so Dumbledore wanted to make sure he stays true to his words even when confronted with an overwhelming power like his. He cast a death spell using a person dear to his enemy to kill it through that doll, and right there was Reger's soul in that doll. So Mash instantly punched it, but it was a futile attempt, so instead he stopped it in a painful way to save his pops, and to answer him directly. Mash stated that he would beat the damn out of him if it meant going up against even him to save a person. Everyone in the room was fuming at Mash, but Dumbledore took a liking to him. Then Professor McGonagall started the academic year and taught them a basic spell to open the lock. But Mash raised Professor's blood pressure by using his strength instead of magic to unlock the lock, and whatever she says just goes over his head. But the guy next to him wanted to keep his distance from Mash. He noticed his dorm room's door was missing, and looking back, the guy he wanted to keep his distance from was his roommate. A nice and funny fate he got. Mash asked him how he could enter Divine Visionary, so Finn plays it cool and tells him that he needs to earn gold coins through many of the school activities. But he still needs a good grade or he will be expelled. Well, activities are one side of Mash's play, but studying is impossible, so how would Mash counterattack his grades test? For the time being, subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon to get the latest update on its next part.